All right. Testing, testing, one, two, three. Testing, testing, one, two, three. Can you say something real quick, Arvind, so we can check
Hey
out
everyone,
the
how's it going?
check out the audio balance there.
Yeah, hello. Hey everyone, how's it going?
So I'm gonna pull up the game now. Oh, wrong video. This is GamesMatter, not Video Games Bible. Okay, now it's proper. Awesome. Hello everyone, this is Nelson for GamesMatter. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Today I have with me a very special guest to discuss a very special game. Haven't played anything honestly like it. It's Unrest by Pyrodactyl Games with one of the founders of Pyrodactyl, Arvind. Hello.
Hey,
So, I guess for the uninitiated, what is Unrest?
okay, Unrest is a mashup between adventure game and role-playing game where you play as multiple characters in a city in ancient India. And your objective is to, like, every character has their own objectives. So you just have, uh, like, there is no overall arcing goal. Like, it's a different for everyone, but it's more like uh, you play as different characters and you have to figure out what's best for each of those characters, and sometimes it's what's best for one character is maybe not best for somebody else. The best way to describe it is like Game of Thrones or The Wire in ancient India.
Wow. So, how was the project conceived? Because it's an ambitious design, certainly, and I know it even required Kickstarter to come to full fruition.
Hmm. Well, I wanted to make a game that was set in India because like there aren't many.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. So I was like, okay, let me try to think of a game that's in ancient India. Then, like I like role playing games, and the stuff I'd made before was in the same thing. So, and I think role playing games are probably the best like method to convey a story.
Yeah.
So that's how this initial thing was started, and after that, like I created some sort of scenarios. I was like, okay, let's try to create compelling scenarios in a game where you can which are actually relevant to India. It's not like you just pick a sample scenario like adventurer goes into town, goes to barkeep, asks for a quest, then kills some orcs, and then just like
Yeah.
skin it for ancient India. So it's like adventure goes to ancient India village and then talks to ancient India barkeep, and then kills ancient India orcs. So that would be weird. Like,
And that is an approach taken many times dealing with cultures because it's very hard to depict a culture accurately and faithfully. Does being Indian definitely influence you wanting to, I guess, get it right?
yeah, like because yeah, like you don't get very accurate like representations. How do I put it? Like most of the times, like Indians are either tech support or yeah,
Yeah.
they're actually only tech support. So so yeah, like it's a thing which like you feel, like you see like lots of media and you're like uh, and you feel like you need better representation there. So I was, so that's probably like why I chose to have five stories, because the problem with like one big like our typical RPG like story is that your characters are blank slates. Like there's no, and if you have a template that's like, okay, I'm going to kill some monsters, I'm going to level up, then I'm going to buy equipment, then there is not much you can change with that without, because RPGs in their default form are they're like a very carefully constructed clockwork mechanism.
Yes.
You you kill something, you get money, you get XP, then you spend the money for better equipment, and you spend more points so you can afford the, like you can actually equip the higher level equipment and so on. So
Yeah.
you cannot just remove one part of that and expect everything else to work properly.
Yeah, that's very
So that,
true. And actually, we're seeing three different bars in the top right: friendship, respect, and fear. Why those traits specifically? rather than
Yeah.
maybe another one for, I don't know, morality or etc.
Well, morality we didn't want because like we didn't want the players to take a decision based on what was right or what was wrong, and like according to the game that is. So they have
Yes.
to decide what's right or what's wrong.
That's cool.
Yeah, the conversation thing, like how we came to that is, so I was telling you about the RPG thing earlier, the structure. So I thought, what if we try to create a different structure for this? Like that doesn't have the old like adventurer and quests and loot and that sort of thing. And then we figured out that if we have an RPG that's mostly based on conversation and trying to get that right, then that helps you tell a more detailed story. Because even if you look at, let's say, action movies, right, the action is probably like 25% of the movie in most of them. So, but in games, usually you have something like the action is 70-80%, and like the talking is just like somebody telling you to go do something. So there's very little, in most of the cases, it's very little room for like character stuff.
Yeah.
So with this conversation thing, we thought that you would have more room for conversation. You would have more like flawed and detailed characters, and you can better contextualize what like what a character's situation is, what they want to do, and
And setting the characters at odds, you create some really interesting, again, their moral standpoints, because usually the player is always made to believe that, oh, of course, because you're the main character, you're right. But when you have several main characters in different classes and walks of life, suddenly that becomes a lot more tricky.
yeah. What I was with the multiple characters thing, like one of the major motivations for that is to like do away with like, okay, there's a good faction and there's a bad faction. So in the later stages of the game, you play as somebody who would like traditionally be a villain in in most games. So that kind of is there to provide you with context in that nobody actually sets out to be evil. It's a case of like the systems that and the society we live in, and like the 500 different other factors that are like way too complex for most people to figure out. So it was more to try and give context in that like why do bad things happen? That's a really like simple question, but it's almost impossible to answer. Like nobody can answer that. So that's probably like the reason.
That's interesting. One thing is we're seeing also these creatures known as the Naga. Are
Mm.
those based on creatures from Indian mythology?
Yeah.
And so, how did you uh, figure? I guess how did you find material on implementing them into this world? Did you simply find out information about the Naga, or is because I've never heard of them before?
Well,
It's
they are
definitely
in
something
like
I've never
some
encountered.
books, like like we have like old books and stuff, like epics, mythological epic stories, which have them, and mostly like we only take the visual design from them. Otherwise, they are like the same as humans. They just like look different. Okay.
True, very true. So, when you were designing the story for the Naga, was getting into especially for writing and programming the animations and writing the character, was it difficult getting into the minds of a Naga and what they would be like?
Uh,
Am I even
well,
pronouncing Naga
mostly.
correctly?
No, it's fine. Yeah, like uh, that's roughly how we say it. So what I was like, it's very hard because we didn't like try to give them a very different way of thinking compared to humans. Mostly they think and like act just like us. It's just that they are like they are a different species. So that actually helped us to avoid a lot of pitfalls that you have. Like we we specifically didn't want to justify something in the plot with like, oh yeah, that's just how the Naga think.
Yeah.
So they're mostly just humans. They just look different and they are like physically a bit different. But otherwise, like they are mostly the same as like us. So, and that's usually how they were depicted in mythology too. Like it's very rarely like, like if you take a character like that's like a sphinx which talks in riddles, etc. So that was never the case for them. It was mostly just they were, I guess, they were just like they just looked different. Otherwise, it was mostly the same.
Yeah. So you earlier mentioned Game of Thrones as a factor, specifically dealing with class, and I noticed that class is a huge part of the game. Specifically because again, going back to the whole RPG trope of you are the all-powerful protagonist, and yet, when you can't buy a piece of bread because of your social status or
Hmm.
your wealth, that illusion is quickly knocked down. So, was it difficult designing around social classes, or did it, in a way, even help design? And is class still definitely a part of India today?
Yeah, well, it's like it's a part of like every place. Like it's mostly subconscious. We like try to not think about it too much, but yeah, it's a part, and like I think it's a part of most places. So India is not like special in that regard. But like in ancient times, the caste thing was more overt. That's why we chose it. And crucially, how this started is that originally Unrest was supposed to be like one protagonist game where you could become anything. Like you could become, like you could try to go to the village and like do quests there, and you can try to go to the city and like become a mercenary, or you could become a priest. But then what we saw with that design was that nothing really mattered. Like there was no difference gameplay wise between like being a priest or being a farmer or being a soldier. So that led to like it was a design which lacked any character, and like it made me think that okay, why are we even like using ancient India if we are not if everything just feels exactly the same as like any other RPG. So that led to me thinking, okay, what are the most interesting roles somebody could be playing in the city? And then we figured out, okay, it's one character is this, one character is this, and then we changed the campaign design to specifically take advantage of the situation that this character finds them in and impose restrictions on that.
Yeah.
Because if you're a person like first of all, even the basic premise that somebody could become like a farmer or a soldier or a priest, anything, is just like invalid. That has never happened. So you lose like any historical like basis straight out of the bat,
Did
right
you
there.
did you want to be historically accurate in designing? Because as you said, it went back to a desire to portray Indian culture accurately.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I wanted to be like 100% historically accurate, but I
Yeah.
wanted there to be a flavor. Because like obviously like if we wanted to be 100% accurate, then we wouldn't have Naga in the game. So, but we wanted it to have a flavor that felt authentic. That like I keep coming back to the analogy. So it's not like somebody reskinned D&D and made it like in ancient India. So
Yeah. So, was there a specific game that made you realize that, man, I really need to start working on a game that portrays my culture accurately?
no, I don't think it
Well,
was that. Like there
not
was
I'm sorry for interrupting. Not accurately, but man, this is really something that I need to deal with.
uh,
Something I could do better.
yeah, no, there was not one particular game. It was just like like I like when I was uh, like I used to play a lot of games. I still do. So it was just like I would have like every game, and there was like okay, oh, there's a cyberpunk setting, there's this setting, there's this like alternate history future setting, there's the wasteland setting, but there was never like an Indian setting. So I was like, yeah. There was no one particular game which made me think, okay, I must make this. It was just like, you play like through 100, 200 games, and all the while you like, there's this small thing which you're like, oh man, it would be great if somebody announced that their next big game would be in India. Like, for example, I would love if Bethesda came out and would be like, hey guys, Fallout 5 is like it's the same post-apocalyptic stuff, but it's like in India.
Yeah, it's somewhere that's not in North America.
Yeah, and it's not like they're even like very much like exploring North America. They either do like Washington DC or like the Nevada desert. So
Yeah, that's far.
yeah, so yeah, like it's this thing where you always feel like like, for example, like in all my friends etc. We would like love to imagine like what GTA would be like if it was in our city. You know, somebody made Grand Theft Auto in our city, but like that, the chances of that happening are like close to zero. So eventually I thought like, okay, I'm making games, so why don't I try to make a game? And like, since I didn't really have any like precedents, like somebody to look up to, be like, okay, yeah, this person made a game in ancient India that was an RPG, etc. So I just kind of made it up as I went along.
Yeah, from what we get from speaking to, is it Yogesh? Yogesh?
Yeah,
Uh,
Yogesh, yeah.
yeah, Yogesh. It was a very restrictive society for women as well.
Yeah, that's kind of like a like that used to happen in like pretty much everyone. So there was like, I don't think India was like very special in that regard.
That is
But
true. Same thing in the Victorian age and etc.
yeah, it's just like humanity as a whole has made like a lot of mistakes in history, and like yeah, like I don't know what to do. Like we're slowly working to fix that, I hope. But yeah, it's definitely like a that's actually what Unrest is mostly about. It's like it's about structural imbalances and injustices which most people like don't think about. Everyone is like, oh yeah, that's how it's always been done. But I hope like Unrest makes people examine that, okay, what are the assumptions we make every day, and is are some of those assumptions bad, or some of those.
So through the lens of this semi-mythological land with the Naga and the conflict between of what happens, just the conflict, the societal conflict that's occurring, you sort of want to see players consider their own lives and how they interact with the world and how they see it just by nature.
Yeah, I mean, I would be very like happy if some player did that. Like I have had one or two people email me, said that like they felt that the problems in Unrest were like specifically relevant to them. Like, for example, like if you look at it from let's say like somebody who's being forced to like take a job or study in something they don't want to, then Asha's story is kind of like a analog to that. Like she's being forced into this like big princess role, but yeah, like she doesn't even know what like that entails. It's just like, yeah, that's your destiny, you must do that. So so there are a lot of parallels that you can draw based to like just everyday issues, because fundamentally some of like a lot of the stuff still like has the same problem. Like we
Interesting.
still have like poverty, we still have class divisions in almost every society, and we have uh, like we have people being forced to do stuff they don't want to, and so there's all of this stuff.
So, how did you originally get into game development?
uh, I was in way into Half-Life 2 modding back when I was in college. So that's how I started. Then slowly, like I thought, like I'm modding games, but like maybe I could try making my own. And so yeah, that's how I started. So
Thinking that, hey, maybe I can start making games myself.
yeah,
And you started actually in the time before even Unity and etc., right?
Yeah, I started this way back in like 2005 or so. So
Wow.
at that time either they weren't popular or stuff like Unreal wasn't free, so you couldn't get that.
Very interesting. So, when you started developing games, how was long was it before you started to create commercial products?
Uh, about couple of years, maybe three, before I actually managed to release a game.
Wow.
Yeah, it takes time. Like it's very rarely that you kind of just like immediately like start releasing stuff.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Because what do you use to develop your games?
Uh, Visual Studio, just like a compiler in
Oh,
C++.
okay. So it's pretty much bare coding.
Yeah,
Wow.
by now I have like several tools and stuff that I made myself. So I just kind of use that. That's actually something which I always keep thinking about. Like, do I switch to Unity, or like I already have these tools and I'm comfortable working with them? So it's like I keep thinking about like switching, maybe yes, maybe no. Like have these like small side projects in different like engines compared to the main one that I use for my games.
We got a question from the chat. Will the religious diversity of India be represented, i.e., Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Buddhist, etc.?
There are some like there are Buddhist NPCs in there, but like this is since it's way in the ancient period, like in during the Gupta period mostly. So you won't have the same number of religions as you have today. Like we at some point we will probably make a medieval India unrest or something. In that we will like represent all the religions like that are part of India. But
True.
yeah, that's a very good like concern, and like that was a concern for me as well. So we will definitely like work to like represent like every major religion in India in the future in our games.
One person said that they already own the game, but they say that it's a great role-playing type game with a unique graphic style, and they highly recommend it, which is awesome.
Yes.
Um, Interesting thing. What has the reaction been to uh, Unrest thus far, especially because it's so unique? Were you ever worried that people wouldn't quote unquote get it?
Well, like I was worried before the Kickstarter, I guess. Like the Kickstarter kind of told us that there was definitely an audience. It's definitely not a mainstream audience, so it's not like everyone like will like get the game or like think the game is there for their liking. But yeah, like there have been a lot of people who have told us that it's a great game and like they enjoyed playing it, which is pretty much the best thing that we can ask for.
What's the feedback you've received about how you could have improved the game, and how have you implemented it and or used it going forward? Because I know that's a big thing when I speak to developers. That
Mhm.
there's always the struggle between, okay, someone gave me a piece of good feedback. Do I use that in a future project, or do I continue working on this old project and implement it there?
Hmm. Yeah, one of the things that we like got feedback about was the graphic style, which like somebody felt was a little too sparse. So so yeah, like that's something which we can work to improve. Although that's kind of like very budget dependent. So
Yeah.
so that will depend on like the size and like how much like funding we can manage for future projects. Then another thing was voice acting, which many people thought that reading lots of text like would kind of get old. So yeah, like voice acting especially is pretty expensive. So that was also a cost concern. And yeah, otherwise like the main sort of thing for most players was that like we didn't really use the inventory and traits etc to their full potential. But so yeah, we will definitely like work on improving that aspect. And yeah, we have some like something else in mind as well. So yeah, like probably, but yeah, like there was a lot of feedback, so it's hard to kind of uh, filter out one or two positive, like one or two things that people wanted changed specifically, because some people wanted more freedom to explore, but some people said that the maps were already too big, they, for the number of NPCs that we have. So it's a mixed bag, like, and that's kind of going to be our job, like trying to parse feedback, trying to see what the player was actually bothered by when they said that. So, so yeah, we definitely got a lot of uh, feedback that we will work on improving.
And even for the Kickstarter, it's interesting because I think was there a failed Kickstarter before the current one, which succeeded?
No, the Unrest Kickstarter was just the only one. So
Okay, okay, yeah, because you the initial goal was $3,000. Why was it so low even back then?
mm, well, mostly because we didn't think the game would have that much appeal, and because the original goal was just to get some, like a couple of tile sets.
Yeah,
That if you look at the Kickstarter pitch video, the footage in there is like it's entirely different. So we had a couple of tile sets already made. We wanted a city tile set and a palace tile set. So we thought, let's just ask for money to make that, and we'll make the game in this art style. But then our game got like funded way beyond that, so we just completely overhauled the tile set, and that actually resulted in bigger levels as well.
yeah,
So earlier the
because
game would have been smaller.
you asked for 3,000, ended up getting 36,000. Why do you think that it connected so deeply with people, and would for developers who wants to sort of not rep not replicate not replicate, but man, I forgot that my video games and Bible text was rolling across the screen instead of hashtag game. But for people who sort of look at your success, what would you recommend to go about in that vein? Was there anything in particular that you think you really did right, such as contacting the press and how you did that and etc.?
Mm. I think we were like contacting the press, like the our pitch was, I think, pretty good. But apart from that, there's always the element of luck. Like maybe, like if somebody was just like read our email out of the like 500, 600 emails they get every day, and they liked it. So there's definitely an element of luck always with reaching out to press. And yeah, like it was mostly, I think several people other than me also clearly thought that like there weren't enough games in India, like set in India. So, so yeah, I guess it was just like being like having the right idea at the right place, right time.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's pretty cool. You also did another Kickstarter for a game called Late to the Party that
Yeah,
raised 15,000 for a budget of I think it was 45. I think it was 50.
yeah, yeah. Like
So
$45,000 and like 50 in Canadian.
what do you think was the main difference between those two projects?
Mm, I think we were like more unlucky in contacting the press. Then there was like a higher budget because we wanted to like step up the art quality and such. So, and like we probably also launched it at the wrong time. We launched it, I think, in November, which is usually a bad time to launch that stuff. But at the time, we didn't know that. So, so yeah, there were a ton of things, and I think like maybe the setting didn't appeal to people as much as like Unrest did. So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, because
that's actually like a problem with analyzing things, because, like, for example, maybe Unrest Kickstarter didn't succeed because of its setting, right? Maybe it succeeded because of something else. But now I don't know, because of the Kickstarter has succeeded. I like am in the mode of thinking that everything was right with that Kickstarter,
yeah.
and with Late to the Party, you, since it failed, you're like, okay, maybe everything was wrong. So, so yeah, like the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Like there were probably some things that didn't work with Unrest, and some things that worked with Late to the Party, but it's very hard to know what those were without without some serious like guesswork or something.
Hmm. Seaguard signaling you can go and start negotiations now. Yeah, it's very weird. It's just the tension that you brought just by text, and it appears that you actually have a writer on the project. You
Yeah,
had a
yeah.
writer. So what was it like assembling a team, and how did you know that this was going to be the project that the next commercial project you want to do? Because this wasn't your first game. Your first was I
Atypical RPG, yeah.
Yeah, it was Atypical RPG, yeah. So, do you want to speak about Atypical RPG? And was that the first time you brought the team together?
No, like the team was completely different from Atypical RPG in this. Uh, Unrest had a different artist, a different writer, and a different scripter. So it was basically an entirely new team that I assembled. Atypical RPG was mostly just me with two of my friends uh, back in college. So yeah, like that was a different thing. And I made that while I was in college, released it. So that was an entirely different thing. By the time I had gotten to Unrest, I had learned a lot of stuff and like shipped a couple of games.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
yeah,
That's Would you say that even though they weren't perfect, that every game shipped brought you closer and closer to the ideal of making a really, really great one?
yeah, no, that's definitely because like even if the game you ship is terrible and like maybe doesn't even work for half the people, it's still something that you like can learn from. So shipping games, that's why it's uh, like one shipped game is better than like 10 unfinished prototypes because like at least in my opinion, because you learn stuff that like during shipping a game that there's no other way to learn
Interesting.
because that's an all-round activity. Like you have to manage like contracts with stores, you have to manage promoting your game, you have to manage like game-breaking bugs which like some players encounter, and like you were like, how did I not find through testing? Because that always happens. That happens with like big AAA games. That happens with really small indie games. So there is a ton of stuff which you learn, which there is no other way to learn except by shipping a game.
Hmm. I'm doing some different choices this time around, and I'm noticing there's a lot of, I guess, was a big thing. Did you ever guys ever think about creating possibility space? Like, not so much will this creating a lot of space in the player's mind to be like, if you do this, this might happen, or this will probably happen, or did much of the design line subverting that? Oh, if this happens, something this will happen, but then something completely different happens, and I'm getting really confusing. But did anything coherent come out of that?
Yeah, we wanted to avoid the sort of conversation trees where you have, like you go to NPC in an RPG and you're like, hello, what, you get four options. Hello, what is your name? Can you tell me more about this village? What do you do? And I'll talk to you later. Then you talk to the first, you click the first one. The guy says, my name is Bob or something. Then you go back to the same dialogue tree and it's like, okay, Bob, tell me about your village. So we wanted to avoid that thing where,
The
uh,
the hub system, the dialogue hub system.
yeah, like we didn't want to make the characters feel like dialogue dispensing machines. We wanted
Hmm.
to make like the characters feel more like people like who mostly have their own problems to deal with. So they won't stop to explain you about like what's going on in the city and what like the basic stuff about their life, etc. So that was the key driving factor behind this.
Hmm. I know what is going to happen later on in the story, which makes me. It's weird coming back the second time around because I know something might happen. Uh, man, yeah, that's really weird. Was it difficult finding members for a team? Like, did you have to have a vetting process? Were you the sort of center point, and you gathered all the members over time?
Yeah, like that's how I had to do it because I didn't have a like a PR department. I was the sole guy working on it. So I just contacted people who I thought like might work. I found my artist like on Reddit. because my old artist, he kind of just bailed on the project. Uh, so I was like with a half finished game, and suddenly I didn't have any art, like anyone to make the other art. So I made a Reddit post that was like my artist has left, help me. Like it wasn't like that. It was like, what do I do in this situation? And like this guy contacted me, and like he turned out to be pretty good, and he was the artist on Unrest, like in the final version.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was like a completely like random like luck thing, which like he could easily have like looked at that post and thought, nah, whatever, and then like who knows what might have happened like to the game as it is now.
Wow. So, did you ever have difficulties in forming a team? Like, ever initially work with someone that turned out to not be really good? Like, I spoke to the lead artist of Planescape Torment, and the big thing he said was, it doesn't matter how talented someone is, if they're a dirtbag, it's ultimately it's not gonna turn out too well.
Yeah, no, that's always there, because like talent is not like some ethereal thing which like somebody just like if somebody has 50 points of talent, somebody has 40, then the 50 talent guy is better. There's never something like that. So talent is like maybe 5% of the equation. The rest is like their work ethic, how they jive well with other members, because like working well with other people is very crucial in a team based project. So
True,
even if
very true.
somebody is like massively talented, like, and even like because I don't have enough money to pay people like competitively, right? Like they will definitely get better money if they have a different job, if they have like a proper job or something. So as an independent developer, when you start out, you have zero shipped projects. Nobody wants to work with you because you are a risk. There is like always a chance that you won't ever ship your project, right?
So, did having shipped projects help in assembling a team and getting serious about something?
Yeah, that's like the number one thing, because imagine if I was to ask you about like, okay, do you want to work for my game? The first thing you would look at is, has this guy ever made a game before, right? Because if I haven't, then I am basically like some random guy like on the street or on some random forum asking you to essentially devote the next like 6 months, 1 year of your life for something that might not actually ever release or like never happen. So why would anybody do that? So
Yeah.
that's why,
And I've
like,
noticed a lot of people getting burned that way as well.
yeah, no, that's definitely a concern. Like, I wouldn't be like, well, like, I was an inexperienced person once, so you should work with every inexperienced person, because like a lot of projects don't happen because of any number of reasons. Sometimes the team picks like a too ambitious design which they cannot implement. Sometimes something else happens. Sometimes it's just like somebody has to like leave working on their project because they don't have the money to continue. So there's a lot of factors for that, and that's why like in my first game, I worked with like just one artist and one friend who like kind of helped with the story a little bit and like did some scripting stuff. So and so the artist in that, like he was a hobbyist, uh, and he would just give me basic levels, and I would put them together with like he would give me sprites and I would put them together in Paint or something, uh, in Paint.net. Like that's the software. It's a pretty good like beginner level Paint software.
Yeah.
So, so the first game was made with like I put in something close to like I put in effort in every field except like the actual drawing of the art. So I did everything else. Then in the next project, the artist, I got another artist because, uh, and he would do most of the art, and I would just put it in the game, and I would program and I would script some stuff, and one of my other friends, he would do most of the scripting. So in that, I did some less of the like something less compared to the previous one. And in Unrest, I sort of subdivided it even further. So the more I did that, like to a level, the game becomes better because you can spend more time doing that one thing and making it more polished.
So wearing many hats in some cases can really work against you.
Yeah, I mean, it will. It might turn out that you are the best person to do like five jobs in the team, but in that case, you have to spend 5x the amount of time.
Yeah, 5 times. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely a concern. Like, have you noticed other independent studios getting burnt out because people don't watch that? Taking on too much.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern. Yeah, like I definitely like for a short amount of time, like I was pretty burned out too. Like after releasing my second game, so so that happens a lot too. Like, I mean, I usually now I take breaks, uh, once I work for like a week or so because you kind of have to do that because this is a very it's a very taxing job.
If you've been for people who are burnt out or in danger of burning out, is there any advice you would offer? Is there a way to recover?
Well, like I don't think I have the optimal advice for that. So, like I mean, I usually just like try to like not work for a few days or just like go like travel somewhere. But yeah, it's something which is different for everyone, and I wouldn't say I am very perfect at that too because sometimes I get burned out that I don't recover for like months. So it's a very because this is a very difficult field. Like the you have to do a lot of work, and most of the times you don't actually get paid for the work, or you get paid very little, and then many times nobody will appreciate what you're doing. So that's like the worst possible combination of factors. It's like the opposite of the puff formula. So
But through the midst of it all, you keep going. Why?
I guess because I like games, like, I cannot find a sane reason. Like a sane person would have quit way before where I am now. So
That's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to see why people continue to do what they do, um, and to see, yeah, love drives a lot of people, keeps them going. When
yeah,
you were,
it's diff-
oh, sorry, you were saying?
no, no. I was saying yeah, like it because it's one of those fields like it's a creative field, right? So similar to how you have like people waiting tables to get their big break in Hollywood or something, or like how there are like bands playing in every restaurant, but rarely does anyone get like worldwide fame, etc. So that's how it is. Like in creative fields, it's a very attritional game. Like you have to survive for way too much time before you actually get to like a part where the hobby actually becomes like a sustainable thing for you.
Wow, Hanu is a jerk.
Yeah, that's kind of his thing.
What did he give me as a wedding present?
Hanu is like an interesting character because this guy, like, he's in the exact same, like, roughly the exact same position as you. Like, he's also being forced to marry against his will. So, so we didn't want like to make a character who's like who was totally cool with everything, right? But at the same time, we didn't want him to become like this antagonist who's just like twirling his mustache, being like, ha ha ha, I'm evil because I want to be evil. So
Yeah,
it's a very delicate balance that we had to strike with this guy.
and like the mother is saying that he's gonna even out.
Yeah, like and like okay, a small disclaimer here, like some of the things which the NPC says are bad, like life advice. So because this is ancient times, they didn't like have a lot of the psychology kind of stuff that we have now. So so like a lot of this stuff is bad advice, and like there was this funny like live stream somebody was doing, and they were like, okay, like this game is good, but we need to talk that you cannot actually like believe what, like for example, like what Tanya's parents are telling you. So that was funny because because this game like made somebody think that okay, yes, no, like I should give people a disclaimer in case they think that's the right way to go with their life. So yes, like Unrest, life advice simulator. something like
Life Advice Simulator. So, are you planning to do Unrest Life Advice Simulator 2015 and making the resulting millions?
that. Yeah, well, I mean, if it was that easy to make millions, I would have like already done it. But yeah, we will. We like I don't think it would be in the near future, but in like a couple of years, maybe we will make Unrest 2. I think, and it would definitely be interesting because it won't be anything like Unrest 1. That I can tell you. It would have
Hmm.
the same. It would have the same kind of tone and the same kind of moral dilemma stuff. But there's a lot of different things that we learned with Unrest that we'll use to make Unrest 2.
Oh, you're going to make it Unrest too?
Yeah, like in the far future, like maybe next couple of years. Like definitely don't expect anything like now because right now we're working on Good Robot. Then we have then Atypical RPG was greenlit on Steam. So we will work to get that ready for Steam, and then we have like late to the party. Want to figure out what to do with that. So there's a few projects, but eventually we will get to Unrest 2 because it's a game that everyone in the team has a soft spot for because it's just something that all of us put our heart in.
Wow. That's really awesome. I'm glad that people enjoyed Unrest, and I hope GamesMatter helps it out because it's really just the fact that players have reacted in such a way to it and that it was designed so uniquely. I think it's something that people appreciate. That's something I really appreciated. And I remember after playing, I couldn't tell. I wasn't quite sure whether I was awesome or a terrible, terrible, terrible person. And I guess that's the goal of it all, right? You want to make your player think after they're done playing in any RPG.
Yeah, like that's the kind of thing that like we very rarely know whether like something we did was good or not until with the benefit of hindsight or something. So
Hmm.
and the game it's all about like what's happening in the city of Bhimra, like the unrest in the city and stuff. So so it's clear that no major character or like nobody in the game has the answer. It's not like if you make like this sequence of decisions, like somebody will come up like from the stars and be like, yes, you did right. Now everything's fine. So we wanted to avoid that. We wanted to make the player think that okay, did I try to do my best, and did that help in, did that help the city, or did I like mess stuff up? Because you know, like how they say that like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So, so that's
Hmm.
kind of the thing that we were playing with. Because it's very rare, like that somebody actively decides to like be evil or something.
Yeah, it's a combination of traits that, depending on what position you're in, you could see as evil or not, and that's where
Yeah,
most great tragedies have come from. People
yeah,
believing in somebody who was evil.
yeah.
So, stepping down from that somewhat very high moral pinnacle or whatever, um, this was not your first game. It's certainly not your last either, because you recently just released another one, which is actually a remastered version of a previous game, Will Fight for Food.
Yeah,
It's, oh my gosh, I hate saying this name because, Will Fight for Food Super Sellout of the Hour Edition.
yeah. Super actual sellout game of the hour.
Oh dear gosh. Super action. Okay, let's just go with Will Fight for Food better.
Yes.
Will Fight for Food better. How? What? Can you tell us a little bit about that project, real quick? Where
Yeah.
people can find it, and what made you decide to go back and remaster something? Because obviously it's a time investment. What convinced you that that was worth it?
Yeah, well, Willfire of Food was greenlit on Steam. So when we finished Unrest and we were like, okay, Willfire of Food has been greenlit, uh, we were like, well, we could just release the old game, but that had a lot of flaws, which by that time we were kind of familiar with. Like we had gotten a lot of feedback. So we were like, okay, let's try to fix them the best we can. We obviously like couldn't remake it like 100%, but we tried to make it a little bit better.
What
And
were the main areas of feedback?
Uh, well, we rewrote almost the entire dialogue. So now the game is like way more funnier, has a lot more jokes and everything. Uh, the the conversation system is kind of more explained. The user interface is much better. The combat is more fluid. Earlier it was very slow, so we couldn't actually like make new fighting moves, but we made the existing ones as polished as we could. So
Okay, okay.
this is the link for the game, like on Steam. So it's like this game is it's a comedy game and it's a mashup of like beat 'em up and RPG. But like my recommendation is play it as an RPG and only use the beat 'em up stuff when like as a last resort. So the idea is that you are a wrestler in this game who like he kind of messes up his big main event and thus like is completely like the his company sues him, everything falls apart, and after
Wait,
a
wait, wait.
certain
If his world is falling apart, does that mean that this is a sequel to Unrest?
well, it's actually like not like Unrest at all. It's a much more light-hearted game.
Yeah,
So
it's a comedy game, as you said.
yeah,
That's unlike the current. It's a little bit different than most comedy games for our viewers. It's different than most. I've actually had the chance to try it. It's different than most comedy games where we see where it's focused on a funny premise or etc. It's really based on. I guess you could say it goes back to those old LucasArts adventures, where it just puts you in these really wacky situations, and you're just and you deal with this really, let's go with interesting character who how he interacts with the world is pretty screwed up as well. So it's just a very skewed look at life that ends up being very humorous, I guess. Right?
yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. Yeah, it's very LucasArtsy in the way that almost every character like operates on a different kind of plane of logic, and like most of the character like interactions are very surreal and humorous.
Yeah, beating up the Chancellor to take his throne.
Yeah, it's very yeah, it's what makes this game interesting for me, at least from a developer perspective, is how like we made it so that every quest works if you beat like random NPCs up. So
So if you beat up literally everyone in the game, you can still complete it.
yeah,
That's
there's
pretty
a
amazing.
special like ending for that.
And actually, while I'm looking at the information for that, and that's Will Fight for Food, it just came out. Support the developer by buying that or Unrest. Unrest is currently on Steam for $14.99, or Indie Game Stand is currently having a pay what you want deal on it.
Yeah.
And how did you actually get into that?
Uh, the somebody from Indie Game Stand contacted me, and they were like, "Yeah, are you interested?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure. Let's see how it works out," because it's been out for almost 1 year, I think, or maybe like 10 months, 10, 11 months, something. So I thought, "Yeah, sure. Like, let's see how it goes." I hadn't been on Indie Game Stand before, so
That's interesting. So, what has your experience been like thus far?
uh, well, like so far it's kind of just started, so. So yeah, not really like any like standout stuff so far. But yeah, like let's see how it goes. It's roughly like seven. There's roughly a couple of days, so no, maybe three days left.
Yeah, and
So
going back to Will Fight for Food, it's interesting how you did decide to come back and do something unique and different with it. The purchasers of the previous version, did they get the Game of the Hour edition free?
yeah, yeah, they did.
That's
That's
awesome.
actually kind of a like we that's intended as a like a thank you version. Thank you to the people who like greenlit us, voted for us on Steam.
That's awesome. Love when I see that. Um, got some questions from the viewers. Have you sold more copies in North America or India?
North America, like because India has like there's very little credit card like people that actually have that. So paying for stuff like on Steam using the regular method, that hasn't caught up yet. So it's a relatively small market. So, but India has been a significant. It's probably like uh, maybe the seventh or eighth nation that bought Unrest. So that's huge because usually India would be like somewhere down in the like 30th, 40th country. So I think that's huge, but it's a start. Like because like PC gaming culture as a whole like isn't collectively like at the same place as in America in India.
Interesting, interesting. How is the gaming scene in India, consoles versus PC versus mobile, and studios versus indies?
No, I didn't get that. Like, could you repeat the question?
Um, a viewer asked, "How is the gaming scene in India, consoles versus PC versus mobile, and
Oh,
are there any studios or mainly indies?"
it's mainly indies. Most of the big studios are mobile focused. So there's a lot of new mobile games like coming out specifically for the Indian market. Because I think India has a huge number of like smartphones, mobile phones now. So so yeah, it's the market here is very mobile focused.
Hmm. That is interesting. And one person said Unrest 3 confirmed.
Well, let's see like how Unrest 2 goes before like we go to 3.
Hey, you could just skip straight out to that. Have a game of the decade edition.
Yeah, Bill Fighter Food probably like because though I don't think we'll probably make a sequel to that because it's not a like I think we did pretty well with like the game of the hour thing. So I don't think that's necessarily need a sequel. But yeah, like usually, like I think you'll notice with like my games, very rarely make sequels. In fact, haven't yet so far. So so yeah, we'll only make a sequel if we actually think that we could do something with it. Otherwise, yeah, like I think it's better if like the world would be a better place if people would just make new stuff instead of sequels all the time.
Interesting. So, your current project is actually a new thing, and would you like to speak about it a little bit?
Yeah, so we're working on a game called Good Robot, and it's like a procedural shoot 'em up with an
Interesting.
RPG element, and a branching storyline. So it's kind of like uh, so gameplay wise, it's completely radically different from Unrest and Will Fight of Food, but at the same time, it has the same kind of pterodactyl thing going with like little bits of narrative and
Bits of
stuff.
humor as well.
Yeah, so it's definitely, but right now it's in a very early stage. So I don't want to like say like okay, it will have this feature, it will have that feature, but it will definitely have be a shmup that's procedurally generated, and it will definitely have some dialogue and branching story.
Interesting.